So picture this. It's just past midnight in Atlanta. You're driving in your SUV and reach this point right before an intersection. Right behind you is a police cruiser. At that moment, a black Lexus dashes out of the parking lot, crosses into your lane, and plows into your left front. Now that's pretty bad. No one likes being hit. The police cruiser behind you immediately turns on its emergency lights. Being midnight, the emergency lights light up the area for miles. So you figure you'll get out of your SUV, shake your fists at the driver, the cop will tell you to calm down, he'll write down his report, and you'll go home to cry to your insurance company. But no. The Lexus takes off with the police car in hot pursuit. Let's follow along in the police cruiser. Here, the Lexus pulls over and the driver is drunk as a skunk. Worse, he's driving on a suspended license. Guess who? That's right. The inebriated maniac is none other than our good friend Rashad Richey, host of the Young Turks Indisputable show and a grade A narcissist and con man. Well, it turns out that on top of all that, Rashad Richey has been a very, very bad boy. We will now read the police report. And given that it involves a smashed Rashad Richey, you know it's going to be freaking hilarious. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With cold, blunt analysis cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's time for the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
I originally planned this for one of my Loco Lawyer series, but Rashad is not a lawyer and never will be because there's no chance in hell he could ever pass the bar. However, I retained my Loco Gangster memes because they seem to fit. Now, this incident happened in 2014. Rashad will try to convince you that this was in the faraway past. I don't consider 10 years that long ago. At 33 years of age, he certainly knew better. So let's get this show on the road. The screen captures of the original police report turned out to be too blurry to show, so I have transcribed them word for word. If you don't trust me and you want to see the original report, I have it linked in the description below. One more thing, the officer isn't exactly Shakespeare, but I left the issues with sentence structure and such intact.
On November 11th, 2014, at approximately 2011 hours, I, Officer C.S. Thornton / Officer B. Smith, Field Training, was patrolling in my marked police vehicle when I witnessed a hit and run in front of 343 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard Southwest. I was driving behind a 2014 GMC Yukon belonging to Taylor Gay going southbound when a 2006 Lexus SC430 belonging to Michael Burton but driven by Ollie Richey driving northbound ran into the front left grille of Mr. Gay's vehicle. Mr. Richey backed up and proceeded to avoid my marked patrol vehicle and traveled northbound away from the scene. He began to drive away from the accident, which insisted that he cut around the marked occupied police vehicle with all emergency equipment activated.
Loco! Huh? No.
Oh my God, this is like the Dukes of Hazzard, except at midnight. And Bo Duke is being played by a heavily inebriated race-baiting braggart who just broke the law. And as you'll see, Bo here doesn't escape. But other than that, it's just like the Dukes of Hazzard.
He drove till the intersection of Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard Southwest and Ferris Street Southwest and stopped his vehicle. I got out of my vehicle and approached Mr. Richey. He tried to step out of the vehicle but was unsuccessful due to immobility from being intoxicated. I next physically detained Mr. Richey in order to investigate this situation further. I asked to conduct a DUI test on Mr. Richey because while stepping out of the vehicle I smelled an alcoholic beverage on his breath, and he had glassy eyes and the inability of his mobile skills. Mr. Richey refused the DUI test.
Can you refuse a DUI test in Georgia? Yes, but it involves a mandatory suspension of your license for 1 year. More on that later.
However, when I asked him if he had been drinking, He confessed he had been drinking.
As Rashad will always tell his listeners, it's always a good idea to talk to the cops. If you're drunk, the best way to handle it is to tell the cop that you're drunk, because the cop is your friend. The more helpful you are in his investigation, the more he will help you in court.
He's such a good guy, Your Honor. I can't in good conscience take the stand against him.
Remember, Rashad claims to have a Juris Doctorate. He doesn't.
It's more like, zany or goofy.
Yeah.
Afterwards, he argued he sustained a head concussion and suddenly fainted full unconscious. Mr. Richey fell to the ground and hit his head on the concrete and was not alert but breathing.
And he was driving? And he hit another car? And he fled from the cops? Don't worry, of all the injuries that Rashad can sustain, a head injury would probably pose the least concern. In fact, a good solid whack to the cranium might tone him down a little bit. And no, I'm not asking anybody to do something like that. By the way, fainted full unconscious means he passed out. I mean, this dude was loaded. I've been pretty drunk in my lifetime. I'm Scottish. But passing out while standing up?
I called Grady to the scene to assess his situation because he was not responding to verbal commands. Before Grady arrived, Mr. Richey became alert and was asking what happened and if the other driver, Mr. Gay, was okay from the accident.
Okay, that was nice of him. Doesn't make up for tearing up his car, but I'll credit him for it.
Next, as EMTs continued to provide first aid backboard neck brace, he assumed that someone hit his vehicle and drove off. He was not assuming fault for the accident that was witnessed. He wanted to know if we knew what vehicle hit him.
Do you realize how drunk he was? Once he came to, he thought it was the other guy who ran into him and fled the scene. He completely blacked out the police chase.
Hey, I'm the most local person in here.
I hope that it was a lot of alcohol, because if he got this lit up on a 12-pack, then I've lost even more respect for him, if that's possible. But oh, it gets better.
Grady assessed him, and he was placed in the patrol car, and his handcuffs were double-locked and checked for tightness. During my investigation, I was trying to obtain information about Mr. Richey to begin the report. I asked Mr. Richey for his date of birthday, and he responded, lawyer.
Wow, they tried to pry that date of birth out of him, but he was too clever for him. They asked him, have you been drinking? And he says,
Yep.
He sings like a canary when it comes to incriminating testimony, but he pleads the fifth when they ask him for when he was born. You can't make this up.
Garfield. Yeah, I'm crazy. I'm the local one.
The weird part is that he has to tell them his date of birth. There is no Fifth Amendment protection for that. This is the same guy who claims a Juris Doctorate. He doesn't have one. And how well did his strategy pay off? Not too well. His date of birth is on the ticket.
I was unable to obtain any information from Mr. Richey at that time period, although he advised multiple times that he works for Clayton County Sheriff's Department and later finding out he is the chief lobbyist for the noted department.
Oh, so he's pulling the "do you know who I am" bit. He thinks that he can get out of trouble if he tries to pass himself off as a law enforcement employee. The worst part is that I distinctly remember Rashad chastising the hell out of a town official because she informed an officer of her public authority. But it's okay if he does it.
I was able to look up Mr. Richey on Horizon database and found out that this was not the first time that he charged/convicted for driving under the influence.
Uh-oh. The dude is a degenerate drunk. It's one thing to have a second DUI if you're slightly buzzed. It can happen. This dude fell into an alcoholic stupor, drove into another car, fled from the police, and he had prior DUIs? Let's go back to that DUI test waiver. In Georgia, if you refuse the breathalyzer, you lose your license for 1 year, as I said before. However, if you have prior DUI convictions, you lose your license for 3 years. But it gets better.
While attending to Mr. Richey at the intersection of Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard Southwest and Ferris Street Southwest, I advised another officer to locate Mr. Gay and check for injuries and damage. Officer Moore was able to locate Mr. Gay and obtain his status. I was able to meet up with Mr. Gay and he stated that he was okay. Mr. Gay's vehicle had slight damage but was still operable for him to drive. The vehicle Mr. Richey was driving in was not his, but a friend named Michael Burlon.
So Rashad wasn't even driving his own car. He smashed up his friends.
That was local, but not in an entertaining way.
And his friend's insurance is going to have to pay for those damages. So picture this. You have Rashad Richey in a drunken stupor driving your Lexus. How does that happen? Why isn't Rashad driving his own car? Perhaps it's impounded. Just guessing. I must say, this Michael Burlon character must be a good friend. And he is. So it only behooves us to find out more about Michael Burlon. So let's do a little search.
Mike Burlon is the former chairman of the Democratic Party of Georgia. He served from early 2011 until June 9, 2013, when he resigned following accusations of professional misconduct. Over the course of nearly 6 years, from 2008 to 2014, Burlon obtained more than $2 million in client funds. He usually obtained those funds by either telling the clients that he would hold the funds in a trust for safekeeping, or that he would use the funds to resolve a financial or legal problem on the client's behalf. Instead, Burlon used the funds for his own benefit, including making personal purchases and paying travel expenses, and, in some instances, repaying other clients. In one instance, Burlon obtained money from 2 individuals who were looking for his assistance with starting a new business. Burlon told the victims that he would help them get a loan, but that they had to provide a percentage of the requested loan amount as a down payment. Instead of assisting them with obtaining a loan, Burlon used the funds for his personal expenses and debts. As part of his plea agreement, Burlon agreed to pay restitution of more than $2 million to 15 different individuals. After an investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Burlon pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and was sentenced on February 25, 2015, to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release for stealing over $2 million from his clients. He also agreed to pay over $2 million in restitution.
So Rashad's friend, a close enough friend to allow him to drive his car, is a crook and a felon. What is the old saying? Birds of a feather flock together? Now you might respond, this is unfair. Just because Richey is close friends of a criminal doesn't make him a criminal. And you'd be right. Burlon's crimes don't make Richey a criminal. But Richey's do. And for that, watch my live stream tonight, Tuesday, October 8th at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, where we will go over Richey's criminal record. And it's not good.
The vehicle was impounded and towed to S&W Towing. Mr. Richey admitted several times that he was under the influence of alcohol, and I found a pint of Bud Ice sealed in the wingspan of Mr. Richey's position as driver. Upon investigation, Mr. Richey's license is suspended for child support and failure to appear.
So Rashad didn't even have a valid driver's license. It was suspended. And why? Because Father of the Year wouldn't pay his child support. This is the same guy that parades pictures of his daughter around on social media. The same daughter he tried to convince everyone wasn't his. A judge forced him to take a paternity test. Guess what? It was his. And yes, I have proof. Speaking of Father of the Year, Rashad crowed about the Bold Maiden, an online magazine owned by his own marketer, Praise Jackson, declaring him a champion for women's rights. By the way, here's the article, and it's a riot. It says, Dr. Rashad Richey, champion for women's rights in higher education. And there he is in an obvious Photoshop. Good God, that looks terrible. The Bold Maven is committed to always standing with the allies in our community who stand with women. Popular multimedia personality and university professor Dr. Rashad Richey has been fighting for the rights of historically marginalized communities for years. Through his fearless public advocacy, injustices have been exposed, families made whole, and leaders have been held accountable. Dr. Richey has utilized his platforms, which have over 2.5 million combined followers, to bring support and awareness to issues that impact women around the globe. He is a champion for equal pay for equal work, expanding maternity leave under FMLA, and protecting reproductive rights, to name a few. I suppose the one not listed is enforcing child support. These policies enhance the quality of life for women and girls in America and beyond. But oh, it gets better. The Bold Maven was surprised to hear about a small online group targeting Dr. Richey. Not for his opinion commentary, but for his academic scholarship. He doesn't have any academic scholarship. Dr. Richey, who also serves as managing partner for the law practice, the Fairness Firm, LLP in Washington, D.C., holds multiple advanced degrees, fights for others daily, and we stand with him. His published research is cited by scholars in America and abroad, challenging draconian policies that lead to oppressive systems. The Bold Maven received permission to republish the full investigative report conducted by the National Private Investigation and Intelligence Firm, a government-licensed private investigation agency specializing in higher education accreditations. Dr. Richey chose not to provide a comment for this story. I won't read the report, but I'll have you know that the detective agency that did all the research happens to have its office in the same office complex as Rashad. You can't make this up. He commissioned this report. He practically wrote it himself. But I have another video on this, and I'll link it in the description below. So yeah, he's a real champion, all right. He tried to claim his daughter wasn't his so that he could get out of supporting her, then doesn't pay the child support once he finds out that she is his, leaving her baby mama to pay the expenses of rearing her. Champion of women's rights. He's really something. Enough of that. Back to the police report.
However, when searching Mr. Richey, I was unable to locate his identification. There were no injuries from Mr. Gay. Mr. Richey was taken to Grady to be evaluated and then to city jail. Mr. Richey had $53.74 U.S. currency of money, Visa card, and 2 cell phones on his person.
2 cell phones. That sounds suspicious, but keep in mind, he does have a political job. It's quite possible that he wants one for his personal life and one for his political life. I don't know. I'm not going to make anything out of it.
The items were properly labeled and put in property. Supervisor Unit Number 1195, Sergeant Poots, was on scene and notified of the above incident in discovery period. End of report.
So he's a deadbeat dad, raging alcoholic, drunk driver, and a menace on the road. But he's more than that, though. Again, watch our live stream tonight. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.